Alright guys, welcome back to Persona 3 Reload. Last time we met in Persona 3, we just did our tutorial for Tartarus, the main dungeon of this game, and it was a pretty basic tutorial, you know, just getting into how the battle system works for Persona 3 specifically, and just that kind of stuff, you know, pretty standard Persona stuff. But now we are actually getting into another phase of the tutorial, which is your normal everyday life sort of thing, where we're actually starting to learn about social links and social stats and what you can do in terms of, you know, outside of the dark hour and battling and stuff like that. That is essentially what the majority of this part is we're just going over social links and stuff like that. So I guess I should get into what social links are, because we were just introduced to one of them, actually, which is our Magician Arcana, Kenji. So social links work a little bit differently than they did in Persona 5. Okay, first off, in Persona 5 they were called Confidants, and but in Persona 3, they worked a little differently than they did in Persona 5. Again, I'm going to keep prefacing with this that I'm comparing this game to Persona 5. One, because Persona 3 Reload is more like Persona 5 in terms of accessibility and overall just quality of life. And two, Persona 5 was the first Persona game on this channel I did, so it's a lot easier to compare Persona games to one that I've played before, at least on this channel. So the thing about social links in Persona 3 versus 5 is that in Persona 5 you gained benefits out of your confidants besides the Arcana burst, where, you know, for example, in the Death Arcana, which was Takami back in Persona 5, not only did you get the Arcana burst for Death personas when you fused them in the Velvet Room, you also got other benefits like more options for medicines in her shop, a discount, and stuff like that. Or in another example is Ryuji's Confidant gave you abilities in battle for Ryuji to use, like baton passing. Well, that was actually something they gave in Royal by default, but in Persona 5, you know, they had different abilities for Ryuji, like Joker could insta-kill an enemy upon trying to ambush them or something like that. And, you know, pretty standard stuff like that. What was I saying? But in Persona 3, the only benefit you get out of doing your social links is the Arcana burst, or the bonus XP you get for when you fuse that persona of the respective Arcana. So, say you fuse a persona of the Star Arcana and your Star social link is at max, you would get the max experience from that, because you maxed out your social link with them. In terms of leveling up your social links, it works exactly the same like 5, where it's best to have a persona of that Arcana equipped on you at all times, so you get more points during interactions with them. And it does pass time, so, you know, it is really good to keep track of which social links are available during certain days, you know, adjust your schedule accordingly, or, you know, do what everyone else does, or do what most people do and look up a guide so you know where to go. But actually, we're not learning about social links particularly yet. Actually, we're more learning about certain functions, about, you know, certain places we can go during our day-to-day life, which is, the first one we're going to is Polonia Mall, which is basically, you know, your secondary hub where there's a lot of shops you can take advantage of. We're about to learn about the main one that you can use, which is, oddly enough, the police station, where Akihiko has a contact there who will sell you weapons. They're pretty expensive, but you can buy weapons from there and also sell all of the materials you get from Tartarus. That way you can, you know, have yen.
Don't be lame. Even heroes need some rest now and then, you know?
Well, are you free or not?
Of course. No problemo.
I want the two of you to meet me at Polonia Mall. You know where it is, right? I'll be waiting at the police station. Got it?
The police station? You mean we're not hanging out with your friends?
Who? These girls? No, I don't even know their names. Hearing so much chit-chat gives me a headache. Anyway, I'm going on ahead. Don't keep me waiting.
Wait! Senpai! Don't leave us!
You know, I have a question. How do they justify Akihiko's injury? Because he has like a few broken ribs, if I remember correctly. You know, did they justify how Akihiko broke his ribs besides the Dark Hour? Because obviously we know how Akihiko broke his ribs, or fractured his ribs, but what about everybody else in the school? You know, what about everybody else? What do they think happened? Or what were they told? Oh, and if you're wondering what I was trying to do, I was trying to explore the school a little bit because, as I mentioned last part, there are Twilight fragments laying around in every area of Iwatodai, but the problem is that they don't spawn all at once. Some of them spawn at certain times, so I would say every now and then it's a good idea to roam around and see what you can find with Twilight fragments. They're pretty easy to spot. Yeah, the game doesn't question you on doing that. You can also get Twilight fragments from Elizabeth when you get social links up. So, you know, it's really good to, you know, talk to Elizabeth every now and then, and she'll tell you, hey, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing, and then she'll give you some Twilight fragments depending on how much progression you've made. Also, I do want to mention that I mentioned that the voice cast of Persona 3 was all replaced. That is a bit of a lie. So, okay, the main cast was replaced, but the original main cast is still in this game. A huge example of this, actually, Kurosawa's voice actor is Akihiko's former voice actor, which is kind of funny to me. But Yukari's former voice actress, I can't remember. She is the antique shop owner. Yuri Lowenthal, who was Makoto's former voice actor, is actually Yukari's father. And I don't remember if Junpei's former voice actor has a role in this game. I don't remember. Fuka's former voice actor does, but I can't remember what it was off the top of my head either. But here, yeah, you're learning about the equipment you can get. So that is one thing about Persona 3. This was actually something that started changing, I want to say, with Persona 3 Portable, where in Persona 3 Portable, starting in Persona 3 Portable, Makoto could only use short swords, while the female protagonist, which I believe her name, I don't remember what name the female protagonist goes by. Isn't it Kotone? Or something like that? Kotone? Or something like that? Whatever. Kotone, she goes... I'm gonna just call her the female protagonist, or Kotone, whatever comes out of my fucking mouth at this point. Kotone, she can only use spears. Or Naganatas. But, that was actually a bit of a change from Persona 3, where in the original, Makoto could use whatever weapon he wanted. There were a few exceptions. Like, I think he couldn't use axes. I think he couldn't use heavy weapons, the heavy weapon that Shinji can use. But besides that, he was pretty much he could have any weapon he wanted. But they changed that to where he only uses short swords, or just swords. But everyone has a weapon that they use and nothing else. You know, Makoto has the swords. Junpei has like the broadswords. Yukari uses a bow. Akihiko uses boxing gloves or his fists. I'm gonna start spoiling party members a little bit. Mitsuru, she uses rapiers, and Koromaru, he uses a dagger. Ken uses a spear, and Shinji, I mentioned earlier, uses an axe. Trying to think if I'm missing anybody. I don't think I'm missing a part. Oh, I guess uses her cannon arms. So yeah, everyone has a weapon type, and they all have different properties in terms of what attack element they are. Specifically, you know, is it a slash weapon, is it a pierced weapon, or is it a strike weapon? For example, Makoto's sword is a strike, or not strike, slash weapon, while Akihiko's is gloves. They are a strike. And then whatchamacallit, Yukari's is pierce. So yeah, you just gotta look in what it's pretty logical what their
We've never had a guest this much promise.
oh, I didn't mean to skip that dialogue, by the way. It's pretty, for the most part, it's pretty logical what the weapon types are in terms of, you know, their physical element. The only one I kind of question a little bit is Ken's. He's considered a pierce physical weapon when his animation is him slashing. That's just me personally. I don't use a spear. I don't use spears that often in real life, so I wouldn't. I've seen more people slap. I've seen people, you know, stabbing with spears, but you know, Ken's animation is just straight up him slashing up and down. But again, that's just me personally. Then again, I think Shinji's axe is considered a strike weapon, which really is funny to me. Yeah, so here's where we're learning a little bit about the Velvet Room in terms of, you know, what its function is, which is fusing personas. I have mentioned that a million times. So, you know, fusing personas is pretty easy. You just have to have two personas and, you know, fuse them together. You get the result. The thing is that I would recommend getting a fusion calculator, because those are pretty easy to get online nowadays. They started getting that shit out like the second Persona 3 Reload came out. But you know, it's a good way to tell, you know, what personas lead to what combination, because it's not a matter of just having the two respective personas. You know, their levels kind of matter, if you have the DLC or not and stuff like that. You know, there's a few factors that go into Persona Fusion that you really need to take into account. And then the other thing I showed off right before I left was the special fusions, where if you have two or more personas, you can fuse a very special persona that's very powerful, and actually it's kind of useful to lead up to Makoto's second evolution, or his higher up personas. You know, it's a really good way to get really powerful personas pretty quickly. Yeah, there's a Twilight fragment right there. What was I saying? There are a few other things. There are a couple of rules with the Velvet Room. The main one, the big one is you can't fuse a persona that is a higher level than you under most conditions. There is one condition to where you can fuse personas that are higher level than you. But that's like if during shuffle time, unless this is episode I guess exclusive, but I'm pretty sure you can do that. I'm pretty sure there's a shuffle time card for that in base game. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I can't quite. Where there's a card that lets you fuse personas 10 levels higher than you. That is the only time you can do that. I think also if you're approaching the final battle, I believe there's a certain extent to how far up you can fuse personas. But again, don't quote me on any of this because I could be wrong. Because I never tried to fuse personas right before the final battle, because one, I didn't see the point, because by the time of the final battle, I had my persona set up ready, and I was just ready to go. And plus, being frank here, Persona 3 Reload is much easier than the base Persona 3 and Persona 3 FES, and hell, even Portable. If you are looking to finally get into Persona 3 and the only thing that was holding you back was the difficulty of battles, Persona 3 Reload's got your back. There is so many ways to get through this game easily. Like, it is... also, keep in mind that this is coming from someone who played the hell out of Persona 3. before. So I played Persona 3, Persona 3 FES, and Persona 3 Portable. So I already know what I'm doing in terms of Persona 3. But when you take into consideration that Persona 3 Reload is a lot more like Persona 5 in terms of quality of life and other stuff like that, you realize how easy this game is. So if you had no problem with Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royals more specifically, then you should have no problem with Persona 3 on normal difficulty. Hell, even Merciless isn't that bad from what I've gathered. And plus, there's an easy mode and a peaceful mode where you literally can't die unless you actively try. Like, to my knowledge, you have to at least try to get a game over in this game. Most of my, like, I had probably 1 or 2 game overs in this game. I'm not counting any deaths to Elizabeth, the super boss of this game, because that's just completely optional. But in terms of, like, main story deaths or battles, most of my deaths came from me just being utterly fucking stupid, or thinking I can take on an enemy, take on a boss with low health for all of my party members, and I just got reckless. That is usually the cause of most of my deaths in Persona nowadays. But that's just me personally. If you're wondering what I'm doing, actually, I'm both looking for Twilight Fragments, and I am also buying every drink in the vending machines, because that is for one of Elizabeth's requests. I will get into what Elizabeth's requests are at a later time, because we don't learn about those until probably a month from now in game time, by the way. Hell, maybe it might be in real time too, considering I'm only doing 2 parts a week for this game. Yes, by the way, yes, this is the I don't know if it's been pretty obvious. This is the Tuesday-Thursday Let's Play. Yeah, I'm not gonna do RPGs on the weekends. I'm just gonna do RPGs whenever the fuck I want. It's easier than trying to upload 7 days a week. Personally, that's just me personally. But I might move Persona 3 to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday when I finish Spider-Man off, because I might finish Spider-Man before I finish Persona 3. That's pretty obvious. I would say Persona 3 Reload is probably shorter than Persona 5. It actually is, because I think Persona 5 holds the record for, like, one of the longest JRPGs of all time, or something like that. But that's also assuming you're not skipping through shit. If you're not... I don't know. I could have sworn I saw something that said Persona 5 Royal is, like, the longest Persona game. And I'm pretty sure Persona 3 Reload isn't that. It's nowhere near long. Like, spoiling this now, it took me about, I want to say 80 hours to... Wait, no, because I'm thinking about what my PlayStation 5 says my in-game time is. But that's based off of... episode Aegis as well, and that took me a few hours. That took me a while to beat, mainly because I took my sweet ass time with episode Aegis. And this is actually when we learn about how to go to Tartarus and
Oh, right.
And Mitsuru is also giving us permission to go out at night. So yes, we can now free roam at night, mainly because Mitsuru trusts that we are using that time to prepare for Tartarus, and technically we are. There's actually one detail I really do love that they carried over from the original. This was in the original, where if you don't go to Tartarus for 10 days starting today, so on 4/30, on April 30th, if you don't go to Tartarus if you haven't been to Tartarus by April 30th, Mitsuru will force you to go to Tartarus on that day. Now, I'm going to say this now. I do go to Tartarus before April 30th. But I find it funny because she gets mad at you and says, like, hey, what the fuck? You're wasting our time here. Was it... So we're going to Tartarus whether you like it or not. So she'll force you to go to Tartarus, and you can't leave until you go at least 1 floor up. In Tartarus. You can go to the first floor of Beeple, turn right back around, and then you can leave. Which actually leads to another point that I actually really want to praise the game a little bit for. Maybe. where you can actually ignore Tartarus for like the entirety of the game, and only do all of Tartarus on the first day, or on the final day of the game, because time doesn't pass in Tartarus, technically. So you can take as long as you want in Tartarus. So once you go to... But, like, once you start to head towards the final battle, if you haven't... Whatever floors of Tartarus you haven't explored, you have to explore it in order to get to the top. So, you could theoretically not do any sort of exploration in Tartarus, except for the tutorial, and the time Mitsuru forces you to go. And then you can do all of the exploration of Tartarus on the final day of the game, which is so funny to me. But I do believe there is a bit of a problem with that. I do believe that, as a result, during full moon battles, you can't use shifting, which probably isn't really a big deal, since getting a 1 more in full moon battles isn't as useful as you think it is. Also, considering that some full moon battles don't even have weaknesses, technically, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, I think so. If I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But I saw someone who explored all of Tartarus on the final day of the game, and it was really funny. And one detail I really noticed is that the tutorials that you get when you first go to Tartarus on a day besides the tutorial, if Fuka is recruited by that time, Fuka replaces Mitsuru for that, which is really interesting. They took that into account, that you could completely ignore Tartarus until that day, or, you know, any day past. So I kind of like that. Now, technically, since this is a New Game Plus playthrough, and I'm already at level 99, I could have theoretically ignored Tartarus, but I didn't want to. One, because I wanted to get my allies up to up level as well for full moon boss battles. Because again, I didn't want to just have to rely on myself for full moon battles. Because again, Mitsuru warns you that if you don't go to Tartarus, you're basically you could be potentially screwing yourself over in the future. I.e., you know, full moon battles are going to be a pain in the ass if you're under leveled.
Was I right or was I right?
But you can theoretically do it, especially if you do it on peaceful or something. Alright, and this is actually our first social link in the game that is not story required, because the Fool Arcana, which is C's, is one that goes up with the story. And then there's a few others that go up with the story, but it's pretty obvious which ones are with the story and which ones aren't. So yes, so social links, you know, there are a lot of factors into which social links to hang out with at certain times. Mainly, what days their social links are available. They usually tell you, especially if you're joining, especially if the social link is related to a club like the track team or the art club. And there's also just some that are only available on certain days. Again, I kind of recommend looking at a guide, and you know, it'll say like Kinji is available on X days and X days or X days. And also you can just tell if that social link is available. Where on the mini map, it'll have like a little card icon about where that social link usually hangs out. Or this was something they added to Reload, where your social links will actively text you when they are available to hang out. You know, similar to Persona 5, where, you know, randomly, most times, if your social link was available to hang out, they would text you saying, hey, you want to hang out and advance your social link, or confidant, sorry. But, yep, there it is, right there. This was something that was added to Reload. Which, you know, that does make it a lot easier. And also, similar to Persona 5, once again, they also did have a network feature where if you press the touchpad on the PS5, you get an idea of what anyone who was connected to the network did on a particular day during a particular time. You know, so if, like, say, 50% of people hung out with a social link, it breaks down which social links they hung out with, or... it's a good way to, get a step in the right direction if you feel like, if you want to, figure out what other people online are doing, what social links do they think is worth advancing now, or what activity is worth doing now. Because, again, this game is all about taking your time and scheduling out what you have to do, what you want to do at a certain time. So actually, I am actually preparing to go to Tartarus tonight. And the other thing is I bought another Mad Bull for some reason because about 80 hours. That's how long it took me to get through this game my first time. But again, also take into consideration that it was my first time. That this is not my first time playing Persona 3 specifically, so it could be a little longer for you if it's your first time. But that's just me personally.
As we explore Tartarus, this will be our
but what was I saying?
I'm counting on you to take
I was interrupted.
during the operation.
I bought another Mad Bull because also certain social links are only active after certain conditions are met, like a certain date, or you ran into that social link during another social link event or something like that. But again, just keep that kind of stuff in mind. So yes, that is actually the end of the part. So the next time we meet in Persona 3 Reload, we're going back into Tartarus again. Yeah, we got out and then we're just going right back in. So yes, we're going to be exploring Tartarus for ourselves for once. It's going to be a bit of a grinding part because this is our first time in Tartarus. So we're going to actually be learning a lot about certain mechanics about Tartarus and the battle mechanics. I believe we learn about shifting next part, but we'll see all that at a later time. So see you guys next time for more Persona 3 Reload, and take care.